What are the top books that all of you should read? What are the top podcasts that all of you should listen to? Well, today on the 2025 wrap-up episode, we are going to get into those topics and more. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to this edition of Creating the Future with me, Dr. Brent Simpson. And today I am joined by Pastor Josh Jordan, our Saturday campus pastor here at Arise, because we want to do something unique today. We want to do a 2025 wrap-up episode where we get to look at some of the best things from 2025. And Pastor Josh gets the honor of interviewing today.
That's right.
You're the host, you're the main person, and I get to be the one probably talking a little bit more. So awesome. I'm going to kick it off over to you, Pastor Josh.
Awesome. Great. I'm excited. Yeah, these are some great questions that I think going into the next year, people that want to learn and grow, these are just great recommendations, right. I think, moving forward. So let's start before we get into 2026, but let's kind of 2025. What is one word, phrase that sums up the year for you?
Yeah, I would... thinking about that because my administrative assistant planned this episode and gave us the content for this or gave us the idea for this. And so I was thinking about that, and I think I would answer it in two different ways. For me personally, and then more corporate, because I don't know that people care about me personally as much. But for me personally, I think this has been a year of healing. There's been a lot of childhood trauma that's been being healed throughout this year, a lot of study with that, counseling, inner healing ministries, deliverance, things like that I've been going through personally to prepare me for what's coming. Awesome. And then I would say, and I think this is true of me, but I think it's true corporately of all of us, I think 2025 is a year of preparation because we'll get to it at the end, but I think something's coming in 2026. And I think it's always darkest before dawn. And some of us have been going through a season that's very dark in some regards, that's probably part of the preparation process to get us into the next season in 2026. So I would say the two words would be healing for me and preparation for what's coming next as a country, as a community, as a church. I think big things are on the horizon.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. That's cool. I love that we can, that God is, I mean, you're leading a church, you're leading podcasts, you're training and equipping pastors, and yet God still leads you through a season of healing. And I think like for us, that's like it's never too late to receive healing, and God's always doing that. And so that's just encouraging.
Well, we always have to keep the mindset. God's always more concerned about what he's doing in you than through you.
Awesome.
And especially as ministers, you have to keep that concern because God's oftentimes doing things through you. And then you can get out of balance and now you're like God's using you, but you're not whole on the inside. And that's really a epidemic in the body of Christ, in my opinion. And so we always have to be people that God's working on, right, while he's working through.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, so let's go into this last year, top 3 books that you read that you think everyone else should read as well.
Yeah, okay. So let me start with these two, and I just mentioned my healing journey. And by the way, I'm going to give you more than 3. I'm going to give you, I think, 5 and then a bonus. So I can't, like
it's hard to put it.
I'm
it's hard to break it down.
And I was shocked. We'll put a list in the show notes if you want to see. But when I started looking back, I thought I try to read a book a week, but I also recognize I don't. But then I'll be on vacation and I might read 3 books in a week while I'm on vacation. Part because I'll listen to them while I'm driving and things like that. And so I don't know the numbers, but. And so I honestly thought maybe I've read 30 books this year or something like that. And when I went back and started going back over the books I've read, it's actually almost 50 books that I've read this year.
One a week.
And so it's really hard. And I also always have a recency bias of like, what's the last book I've read? It's the most powerful until I read the next one, and then it's the most powerful. And so when I went back over it, 2 of the books I think everybody should read that I literally bought to give away when I sit with people and talk to them and stuff like that. And it's part of the healing that I've been going through. 2 that I put together. I think they work together, both by the same author, Patrick Morley, but one is From Broken Boy to Mended Man, a positive plan to heal your childhood wounds and break the cycle. And then second half of Man in the Mirror, which Man in the Mirror was a men's ministry book written years ago. Then you wrote a second half, which deals with some of the same things of transitioning from the first half of life to the second half.
Gotcha.
And both of those were really profound for any of us that are in a midlife lull, midlife season where it's time to heal and figure out your next trajectory. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to on that subject. Wow. We'll get to it in a minute about podcasts, but that's one of the podcasts that I've sent many people to, and a lot of people have responded back just how they were touched with that topic because I think it's touching all of us in different ways. And so that would be the first one. I'm just putting those two together.
Yeah.
The second one would be Strange Religion, how the first Christians were weird, dangerous, and compelling by Dr. Nijay Gupta. I'm a huge fan of Nijay Gupta. I've never met him face to face. I've actually tried to get him on the podcast. I've tried to get him to speak at our church at one point, but I love him. He's such a great guy, such a relevant, good theologian, while at the same time just being what he would call bottom shelf theology, so that anybody can get it. Anybody can reach it, can get it. And this was a great book, especially like for me, I'm leading Churches of Revelation trips, right? So Footsteps of Paul, we're doing a whole lot of context in the first century. This book is amazing for just going, Christianity was so weird to that first century world. And nowadays it's normal for us for the Christian things, but back then it was so weird. I love that book. The third one I would say is The Fourth Turning Is Here, What the Seasons of History Tell Us About How and When the Crisis Will End. This was written by Neil Howe, but it's connected with all of the generational theory books that they've written with him and William Strauss. Now, William Strauss had passed away, so Neil wrote this one by himself. And it's the latest in the series of books they've written on generational theory. But you've heard me talk about generational theory.
I actually downloaded the book as well.
Staff series. Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, I've recommended it to other people as well because I thought it was really cool.
So you read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really cool. I was actually telling people because I was like, oh, this is.
Yeah.
You almost like it's coming, you know.
Right.
So it's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I think everybody should read that book. If you enjoy any type of what we would refer to as like being a futurist, seeing the future, prognosticating about the future, and not just the news telling you all the bad news and how the world's going to end. The Fourth Turning is really, really a powerful book, and there's so much to say about that book. I can't even begin. The fourth or the last one I would say, if you count 4 or 5, depending on if you count that first one as 1 or 2. But the last one I would say is The Psychology of Money, Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness by Morgan Housel. I loved that book. I love psychology stuff in general, the way people think, the way we come to our reasoning. And this was really interesting to think about how people think about money. It's not a Christian book, but it actually connects so well with Christian principles of giving and how we relate to money. And it was really interesting to hear some of the history of money and the history of how we relate to money. And I thought that was incredibly powerful. And I think it's something that, especially as Americans, every American should read, because even without using the Bible, it really helps you take your hand off of the power of money over your life, so that money becomes something you use, not something that controls you. That's good. So I thought that was really good. And then I'll give you a bonus because I don't read I read very little fiction or things like that are more fun. Now this book is not fiction, but when I travel sometimes or I'm on vacation, I will purposely listen to a fictional story. Now this one is not fiction. And I do frequently listen to biographies and things like that as well when I go on vacation, because I feel like those are fun, whereas the other is more educational, but I enjoy the education too. And so there is a book there by the name of, the book name is Codename Pale Horse, How I Went Undercover to Expose America's Nazis. It's a story of Scott Payne, and he is an undercover agent, and it is like watching a movie, but it's all true stories. And he goes story after story after story. It is phenomenal. It is so interesting to see the way they infiltrate these crazy domestic terrorist organizations. Some of the stuff he prevented from happening. You know, we know some of the stuff that did happen, but he prevented stuff from happening. Just the number of times he was almost killed. He's putting his life on the line. He's also a Christian. And so, you know, his own faith journey in that, as far as leaning on the Lord in the middle of these crazy mental episodes of the stress and the overwhelming nature of his job. And just an interesting, fun book. I will tell you, it is not G-rated.
Okay.
Because you are dealing with Nazis and literally some of the worst of society, and some of it's going to cuss throughout the book. It's going to have a few stories that are just not G-rated. So you don't want to listen to it with your kids, but they're not created to create arousal or anything. He's just telling you the story of what happened. So I thought that was a great. Pastor Johnny's actually the one who put me onto that book. Oh, cool. And I really loved it. In fact, I'd probably go back and listen to it again just because it was so interesting.
That
to hear the behind the scenes true story of undercover agents.
Wow, that's really cool. All right, so before we go to the next one, if someone's trying to, let's say for 2026, trying to create the habit of reading, right? So you said you read, 50 plus books, right? What is a realistic expectation for someone who's like, this is not, I wouldn't characterize myself as a reader, but this is something that I see value in, and that I want to, let's say it's a New Year's resolution, if you will. What's a realistic expectation starting the new year, starting as like a new reader trying to create a habit? Of how many books should I, attention to read?
So this may become a whole nother podcast in January because Gabby was asking me to do this, but about creating habits. So I would not focus on trying to read 50 books or even 20 books or even 10 books. I would focus on reading one book. And then you break that down to going, I want to read a chapter a day, or whatever that is. And everybody's a little different. It could be a chapter a week, depending on the person.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But you break it down into the smallest, atomic habit. We're all familiar with that.
Yeah.
The smallest element, and then you just try to do that. And then around that, you try to create a discipline to do it. So I tell people all the time, like, if you really want to read a book a week, it's really not as hard as you think.
Yeah.
If you like, a general book is probably somewhere in the nature of 10 to 15 chapters. If you read a chapter in the morning and a chapter in the evening, you've read a book a week.
Yeah.
I would also throw this out there as far as reading is concerned. One of the ways that I read fast is I've gotten to the place now where I use Audible, and I will listen to the book as I read it. Now, a lot of people would just listen to it, but because I'm a pastor and because I preach and teach and have this podcast and other things, I need to be able to go back to the book and things I've underlined and little side notes and things like that. But by listening to it, I can put it on a fast speed. I can pay attention to it as I follow along. And so I'm really, it makes the book cost twice as much, but I can go through them pretty quickly. And then there's other little tips and tricks. If you don't like the book, if you've read a third of the book and you don't like it, quit. Don't force yourself to keep reading the book. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In some books, it's fairly common. People don't realize that publishers want a certain amount of pages. If you ever notice, most books are a certain amount of pages, 200-ish.
Yeah.
And what frequently happens is people have, content for 80% of that book or 75% of that book. And what you'll find is that when you read the first 80 and the last 20, it just starts repeating itself.
Yeah.
Because they're just trying to fill in the content to get a certain amount of pages.
Yeah.
If that's the case, don't read the last 20%. Give yourself permission to put it down.
That's good.
And then there's all kinds of speed reading techniques too. And I've learned a lot of those. I can speed read pretty well when I want to. Now I have to focus to speed read, but I can go through books pretty quickly speed reading as well.
Awesome. So. Cool, thank you. All right, so moving from books to podcasts. What are the top 3 podcasts that you listen to and that you think everyone else should listen to? I would say both of others, but also of the ones that you have released this year and created this year.
Yeah. Okay. So I already mentioned his name earlier, Nijay Gupta, Dr. Nijay Gupta. I stumbled upon a podcast called Slow Theology, Simple Faith for Chaotic Times with AJ Swoboda and Nijay Gupta. AJ Swoboda is also a theologian. They're both out in the Northwest. Amazing guys, younger-ish, in their 40s, that are very relevant with their theology. Again, lower shelf theology, but they're so good. And they will really just take a breath and take a little passage of scripture or a topic or whatever, and they just dive into it and they discuss it together.
Cool.
And I love that podcast. I think everybody should be listening to that. I believe it's only audio. I don't think they do video at all.
Awesome. Yeah.
But I love that podcast. Think Biblically, Conversations on Faith and Culture is another one that I think everybody should listen to. Do you listen to that?
I listen to that one as well.
Okay. That one's really good. That's from Talbot School of Theology, which is part of Biola, Bible Institute of Los Angeles. It's one of the oldest Bible colleges in the U.S. And it's the apologetic school. They do great stuff over there. And it's just a great podcast where they talk about a lot of current events. And if you want, I don't want to say your news, because it's not necessarily the news as far as like what's going to be on the news tonight, but the overarching big picture news with a Christian perspective of how to respond. Think Biblically is an excellent podcast for that. Cool. And then Sean McDowell is one of the hosts of of Think Biblically from Talbot School of Theology. The Sean McDowell Show. He's probably right now my favorite apologist. He's another one that I've tried to have on the podcast, not so far, and I've tried to have him at our church and hasn't worked out so far. But I'm a huge fan of Sean McDowell. I love the way he presents the gospel and presents his apologetics. And then he does a lot of interviews on the Sean McDowell Show that are just so interesting. He's a great host, a great interviewer. And so I think everybody should be listening to the Sean McDowell Show as well.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, we'll put links to all these things in the show notes. So I know I'm throwing a lot of names of books and all this. We'll make sure that all these are in the show notes. And then as far as our personal podcast from last year, I think the 7 questions for reinventing yourselves for life next season. Okay. I've taught that a few times, both on this podcast and out, and people seem to be really touched by that. They're really blessed by that. If you haven't watched that or listened to that, make sure you do that. The Controversy and Crisis That Created Trinitarian Theology. I love that. Dr. Brian Litfin, specifically the second one, because I actually interviewed him twice this year. The second one especially, I just thought it was so interesting. The second one, I was able to read his book before interviewing him. And I loved his book. I thought it was very well written, even though it's a topic that you would think would be a little dull and maybe boring. I thought it was outstanding. So I do recommend that book. It's not on my top list, but great book if you enjoy that kind of church history conversation. So that's a great one. And then the number one by far that was just for me so much fun is this the quantum physics talk that we did. It's called What Quantum Physics Can Teach Us About Prayer. That was cast into 3 different episodes, but then there was a bonus episode where I just put it all together because it's a little over 3 hours total conversation with Dr. Craig Sterling. And just talking about quantum physics, what could be. None of it is saying this is true. We're not physicists. But what could be, and pictures of the spirit realm as seen through quantum physics. I found it so fun. I've heard a lot of people say how fun it was. One guy actually reached out, and I don't know if anything will come out of it. I'm honestly not sure I want to do it. But one person actually reached out and said that they're making a documentary on this, and they want to interview me on the subject for that. And I'm like, I'm not an expert. That's why I feel like... I'm just this guy that's a little bit of a philosopher that's going, oh, maybe this connects, and that's really interesting. But that one was a lot of fun, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback from it. And then if I were given a bonus for that top, I just think the Easter one that we did was so important about really the name of Easter. Is that a pagan tradition or is it Christian? And all the traditions of Easter, are they pagan or Christian? Because there's so much information out there that's just not true. And God bless Christians who just run with that, and they're just they believe it's true, and now they're kind of looking down at everybody else, and it's just, it causes so much division in the body of Christ for no reason. I
remember listening to the Easter one because there were, and even I would say other Christian theologians, apologists that were actually giving false information. And so I thought that was timely. Because I thought that definitely came up. So that was great.
Well, one of the reasons I did that particular show is there is a pastor that I know that I love and I dearly respect who was posting some stuff that was just inaccurate. And I called him and I'm like, hey, I want you to be aware that it may not be nearly as true as you think it is. And I know you believe it because you heard it from whoever. And that started a good dialogue. It wasn't unhealthy at all. He actually took the stuff down. And that then in me, because he was not just a Christian, I see lots of Christians do it, but he was a Christian leader who I respect and love. Who was just misinformed. And that's where I thought, you know what, I should make this more public and just address it head on. And people may disagree with me, and that's fine, but at least I want to give you another version, and I want you to be able to think about how you're treating others as you talk about it. Because that's part of it.
There was an application part to it.
Yeah,
that was good. All right, so okay, now this is a fun one. Top 3 songs. Top 3 songs 2025.
Right.
I don't know how you're going to be able to narrow it down to 3, but what do you got?
Oh man, so first of all, I listen to a lot of podcasts, probably a lot more podcasts than I do music, podcasts and books. But I do listen to music, and you have to understand I'm a cowboy at heart. So let me give you 3 songs that to me were really powerful, and they're all from, I think, this year, or maybe the first one's from before, but early on in the year it was really powerful. The first one was the Bethel song called Made for More with Jen Johnson and Josh Baldwin.
Yeah, that's good.
That's one of those songs, unfortunately, I think we have a lot of them that aren't really worship songs that sort of like put into a worship song, but it's just a good song. I would never sing it in church.
It's a quiet time song.
It's a good song. And when I talk about this year as a year of healing for me, that song is a healing song for me. And I was on a missions, one of my missions trips, doing leadership training somewhere, and I honestly don't even remember where. It was somewhere at the beginning of the year. I'm not sure which country I was in, but I put that song on loop for a while, going through the airports, just sitting there, because it was so life-giving to me and so beautiful that like you are made for more, and it's just beautifully written. Love the music, great song. The second one is, and this is the newest one for me. Brandon Lake just released a song called When a Cowboy Prays. Have you heard that song?
Yeah, I have. Yep.
I love that song, and I'm a sucker for acoustic versions. There's an acoustic version of that song.
I haven't listened to that one.
That's just him and his guitar. I think it has a little bit of band, but it's live. It's acoustic. It's on Spotify. I'm a sucker for the acoustic version, and I just love, I'm a cowboy at heart. I'm also a romantic, and the song sort of romanticizes the cowboy life, and it romanticizes the prayer, but yet at the same time, I think it's beautiful. I think it's needed, and I just love the song. And then the last one I would say is "Mama Loves Me." That's a relatively new song too. It's by Need to Breathe with Red Clay Strays, another country sounding song. Even though Brandon Lake is not country necessarily, it's kind of country but worship. Need to Breathe is Christian, but they have a country flair, and they connected with Red Clay Strays to record "Mama Loves Me." That's a powerful song too. It's just such a powerful message behind that song. The chorus just gets me in my my getter every time. And so those are like my top 3 songs of the year. I can listen to those probably over and over, and I just love those songs.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm more of a song guy, so I think narrowing down my favorite song would have been more difficult. Yeah. Probably similar to the podcast for you.
Do you know what it would be? Like if it puts
top
you on the spot?
Top three.
Like a top one?
Yeah. I'll say the most current one is a song. It's Adonai, and it's in Hebrew and English.
Okay.
And it's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's not it's not a worship song. It's something that I'll play on repeat, and it's just. For me, it's like a relational song with me and God.
Yeah.
Because it's talking about how much He loves me and how I love Him. I cannot remember that it's a small collective, and I can't remember who it was. I just found them. Okay. But Benjamin William Hastings, my favorite artist. I think 2025. Okay. Just his songs, I feel like they're so authentic. Yeah. He was talking about just it almost like you had this journey of him growing and finding fame. And then realizing he almost lost the art of worship. Wow. And there's songs that are talking about that. You talked about, it's all for you, but my name's on the poster, like stuff like that. And so just watching that and then talking, and then he has a song, if it wasn't for Jesus. There's just a lot of songs. And so it was really cool because I think it grounded me. It's like, okay, we want to do these things for the Lord. We want to reach people, but we could easily fall into that same thing to where it's no longer, we lost what it was about.
Yeah. That's
and so he's, any one of his songs right now, I've been.
So good and necessary for the current environment of worship.
Yeah.
And I love that you just said it's authentic. We just had a staff talk where we were talking about some of the artificial intelligence working itself into Christian music, and one of the top Spotify Christian artists is completely fake. It's completely
crazy.
AI.
Yeah.
This is wild.
It is wild.
That might be another topic for another podcast later on. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So there was the songs. Okay. So now looking ahead, I love this question, and I know you're very futuristic. You're always looking ahead. Looking ahead, especially to 2026. What has God been stirring in you? What is your expectations when you look ahead? What are you kind of seeing right now?
Yeah, I believe there's a awakening coming to America. I don't know that the awakening is in 2026. It's probably a little further out. But before an awakening hits a nation, it's going to come into spot fires inside of individuals and churches. There's going to be great awakenings inside of us before there's a great awakening inside of America. And I actually believe that many of those spot fires are going to start hitting. I believe that Arise is going to be one of them. I believe that many of those spot fires are going to be hitting of revival and God moving that helps to create the momentum for their awakening that's coming into the future. So if I were given a word for the future, I would say spot fires for us in general. But if you look further out, I would say great awakening. Yeah, I think that's the future. So yeah.
All right.
So that's our 2025 wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this. The next 2 Thursdays are actually Christmas and New Year's, and so we are not going to be broadcasting the next 2 Thursdays. We apologize. Take a break, spend some time with your family, and we will jump back into this show next year. But I do hope you've enjoyed it. I hope that this whole year, all the content we've been able to create for you has been beneficial, and I hope you've been blessed by it, encouraged by it, strengthened by it, and I hope you keep creating the future as you move forward. As always, do me a favor and like and subscribe to this podcast if you haven't done it yet. We just went over 1,500 subscribers. Praise God.
That's awesome.
And so let's get over 2,000 here soon. And so make sure you like and subscribe. Send it to somebody who you think might be blessed by it or might be helped by it. And with that all being said, God bless you. Look forward to seeing you in the new year.